When I was told that they managed to build this, mini as it may be, it's still basically a house, for only 760,000 rubles, and the price is current as of today and will be relevant next year as well. At first, I didn't believe it, and I became very interested in coming here with a camera to find out the secret behind such budget-friendly construction, so I could share it with you. A subscriber of my channel, Oleg, started building a house near St. Petersburg last year and decided to take a path that I had considered myself but eventually decided against. And I was all the more interested to see the alternative reality that I could have found myself in. Initially, I had thoughts of not starting the construction of a proper house right away, but instead building something like a studio apartment, just in the form of a residential house. This idea came to me in the city of Sudak when I personally lived for several months in such housing, first as a bachelor and then with my wife, and as they say, we lived in it and didn't really suffer. Therefore, having seen in practice that these ideas were viable, I started thinking that I could definitely handle building such a small structure with my own hands. On my own, I wouldn't go broke and would finish it in one season. This would allow me to quickly move out of my rented apartment and enjoy building the main house without worrying about being left without a roof over my head. And in the future, I could use this building as a sauna or a guest house. After spending several sleepless nights thinking it over, given my circumstances, I decided to start with building the main house. Right now, I'm happily putting this video together in it and telling you what Oleg did. To help you understand what's going on, here's a bit of background information. A sand base was laid, insulated with 50 mm of Penoplex, and a reinforced concrete slab about 25 cm thick was poured, with ribs around the perimeter and a single layer rebar mesh inside under the floor. So, it's something similar to what I did for my own house, just with minimal insulation. Then, D400 aerated concrete blocks 20 cm thick were used as the main walls. Oleg will later explain how to save money on aerated concrete blocks, and I'll add info on insulation since these blocks aren't enough. For the roof, trusses were assembled. Regular boards were used so that the lateral load on the walls could be removed, and Oleg decided to skip the ring beam. I'll also show you a bit later what this led to. The roof insulation was 150 mm thick. Regular corrugated metal sheets were used as roofing, and along the way, they also decided to add an improvised terrace. It was also built on its own separate foundation, and roughly speaking from whatever was lying around in the utility shed. Neither I nor anyone I've talked to believed before starting construction that the house shell at best is only half of the total expenses. At least that's how it was in my case. I actually spent almost 3 times more on the interior of the house than the shell itself cost. That's why the magic of saving really comes into play during the interior finishing stage, and Oleg's example is very telling. What you can save on and what you absolutely can't.
This slab here started to warp, because you see when I brought in the water, a lot of soil was left here. And there's a slope here, so all the water, there weren't any gutters yet. Everything flowed here, it got really soaked, and as a result it swelled up a lot. It swelled up so much that even the front door was catching. Let's go, I'll show you how it looks. It lasted through winter, everything was fine. Well, I can see right away, it started. Do you know why it started? It's this foundation again, this terrace. Somewhere around here in short it pressed. In winter it frost heaved. Yeah, I have a lintel here. The door and the window, it's all one continuous piece, yeah. And over there it breaks. Yeah, it breaks exactly at that spot. And it turns out this concrete started to rise and it pressed right here against the frame. I cut it here, thought, well, everything's fine, it stopped. But the frost kept pressing, and a week later I came by and noticed it had shifted even more. It pressed there, so it bulged out and there was tension. Yeah, about 3 centimeters or so. And here it shifted, but here it didn't, yeah. And it turns out all of this happened because there was no drainage. That's why the foundation shifted. Otherwise, the foundation under the house didn't move at all. Yes. And here, this is the central wall. It's connected to all the other walls. And it's also a load-bearing wall. And the roof framing goes 1, 2, 3. Well, there's a tie-in with the main wall. It adds rigidity, just about the plaster. 4 bags of plaster were used for all the walls. I just plastered roughly without leveling, without using a level. Then I took 1 more bag of finishing plaster, and that bag was used exactly for the whole house. With a spray gun, with a compressor. You just spray it on the wall, go over it, and that's it. I wanted to have 2 colors, you know, one inside and another outside to give it some depth. But my wife said, let's leave it like this, let everything be the same color. I said, okay, that's fine. So here we have a kind of mini kitchen, basically a small entryway. You come in, take off your shoes. If you need to grab a bite, you eat here. I also made all the shelves there myself. The board also has its own story. Well, it cracked through the center. She said, well, that's it. The board isn't really usable. Let's throw it away. I said, don't throw it away. It worked out.
A slight twist, yes.
That's the story. And here we also added some lighting. There's also some lighting here, you know, like a night light. So since the ceiling is low here, at first I wanted to hang 2 lamps, but then I thought, why 2? I mean, basically this one is enough. Even if you use a more powerful one, it wouldn't get any brighter. Because the ceiling is low, the light scatters, and in the corners it wouldn't be as bright anyway. I made this temporary range hood, and it actually works when we cook here as well. Oh, there's heated floors here and here. That's it. The only issue is I already applied the decorative finish before realizing I forgot to lay the wires. So now I'll be touching it up under the plaster. Also, I realized I haven't grouted the joints in the film yet. The weather is clear, but I'm waiting for rain. Once it starts, I won't be able to work.
So I need to hurry.
I'll be here. Yes.
Outdoor work is limited by weather conditions.
It was actually my first time laying tiles. For the first time in my life. That's it. I started here and just like that, all right. So basically, it's the same decorative plaster. It's used everywhere. The ventilation is installed. It's mechanical too. This is exactly where the steam room will be. There's also a raised platform here. The pipe will most likely go here or here.
Well, it sounds nice in here right away.
Yeah, everything is different here. There's no echo at all.
It's absent. I need to do the same in my office so I can record like this. You can hear the echo right away here, this reverberation. It's really cool there. Recording studio.
There's a story here too. My bubble level turned out to be misleading. It let me down a bit when I was laying the first row. This wall ended up off plumb by 1.5 centimeters. So I think, well, buying tiles just to cut them later, that seems like a waste. And I said, listen, let's do it like this. This is just decorative plaster, so to speak. Exterior plaster, I had a bag left over, didn't know where to put it, so I applied it here. I marked everything with a laser level, I drew it all out to make it look like tile. And then you take a regular deep penetrating primer. You add colorant to it. You just go over it with a roller. Let it dry, then coat with yacht varnish. And that's it. And everything worked out. The only thing is that the color here is very different. I'll explain why. Because there were heavy rains. And I came here after the work week, on the weekend. I started priming all of this with colorant, but the lower blocks had absorbed a lot of water. So the primer just didn't go any further. And that's why they're different. Yes, it cost 300 rubles. I just had this bag lying around. And I thought I should use it on the wall, and then what? So the cost of this whole thing, if you consider that I got the bag for free. The varnish and colorant are 300, the colorant alone is almost 400 rubles. As for the time, well, you probably spend 1 day applying and painting all of this. Then you wait for it to dry. The next day you prime it. The next day you apply the varnish. And that's it, everything's fine. Here is also the station that pumps water from the well and distributes it throughout the system, to the water heater and all the plumbing fixtures. I decided to make a shelf like a chest, just like Bogdan would do it properly.
Well, yes, and it's useful.
Yes, and to install it and cover up all the plumbing under the sink, we bought the sink for about 500 rubles on Avito, and I made a little shelf for it from leftovers. I also made this little hanger here, and this hanger here as well. You know, I like to keep things simple like our DIY stuff, so what's left here is to put in the foil membrane. And the paneling is already in place. Again, we planned for this to be like a summer house, so we weren't expecting to come here in the winter. But I think now we'll have to insulate it from the outside too, to make it as livable as possible.
Regular viewers of the channel already know that when I was building my own house, I used Penoplex boards as insulation wherever possible. And in Oleg's case, he needs to insulate all the walls, not just the steam room, because the D400 aerated concrete block is only 20 centimeters thick. It lacks sufficient thermal resistance. One option is to add Penoplex boards outside. The main principle here is to use dry aerated concrete blocks. That means you shouldn't insulate a newly built shell right away. In the case of wet rooms, you need vapor barrier inside the room and proper ventilation. Then everything will be fine. Ventilation is essential, even if your walls are just aerated concrete blocks, like in my house. And to those who support breathing walls, remember our main task is to achieve an energy-efficient structure. And for air exchange in any room, you need ventilation, not leaky walls. Under the floor, Oleg provided 5 centimeters of Penoplex, and the thickness of the insulation is a calculated parameter that depends on your region. Here, near St. Petersburg, this thickness is theoretically enough, together with the insulated perimeter apron, but in practice you can't really call the house super energy efficient. In my own house, I put 25 centimeters under the floor. This is no longer about budget construction, but my goal was to do it well and to make sure the radiant floor heating doesn't heat the ground, which is extremely important with electric heating, and over-investing in materials will actually allow you to save on heating bills in the future. What Oleg also provided for is the insulated perimeter apron around the building. Thanks to their properties, Penoplex boards can be buried in the ground. They are bioresistant, have almost zero water absorption, and the material does not lose its properties. Its thermal insulation lasts over time. The material is durable. The service life is at least 50 years, and the boards are strong enough for load-bearing structures. The recommended types are foundation and extreme. I was also convinced of the usefulness of insulated blind areas in my own house. Penoplex as a thermal insulator. It protects the foundation from frost heaving, plus the blind area itself in this case is less prone to deformation. Both on Oleg's mini house and on the main one he is building, there is still a lack of plinth insulation. Penoplex boards are also perfect for this task, and I've noticed many times with slab foundations that people don't use insulation in advance before pouring the concrete like I did, and you can save a lot of effort this way. If you place the boards around the perimeter of the formwork in advance, of course, you can do it after pouring as well, but in the real world often the formwork bulges out somewhere. The mortar from the first row of masonry can leak somewhere, and believe me, leveling the surface to ensure the boards fit tightly will be very labor intensive. It's much more convenient to take care of this before pouring. By the way, Penoplex will also add extra strength to the formwork. You don't have to build an insulated Swedish slab like I did, but at least consider it. Insulating the plinth and blind area before pouring the concrete. The Penoplex website shows almost all possible constructions, where and how the material should be used correctly. If you follow the basic construction process, it's very easy to build a good warm house. Even with your own hands, for the first time in your life, just like I did, and like Oleg is doing. Even with additional insulation in Oleg's case, because the amount of work is small. This won't greatly raise construction costs. However, not everything went as planned for Oleg, and in some areas those cost savings are causing issues.
I refused to use a ring beam, and here's what happens. The last rows just froze, reinforced with the leftover rebar I had. In the corners I used 12mm rebar, and here's how I fastened the wall plate. Well, the studs were just hammered in at the 45-degree angle. Well, again? In different directions. That's all the fastening. I think there are 6 of them, or maybe 5. Here on the central wall and on that one. Look, there's no support on the gables at all, so everything is held up by these 3 walls. Let me explain. My neighbor has a central wall too, and right here he just has a crack.
Aerated concrete blocks can crack in general.
Yes, there are some tolerances, I understand, but this is a real very clear crack, about 1 millimeter or more. He also has a central wall. Yes, the neighbor. And he says, hey Danik, look what happened. And it cracked by this door. And in another room it cracked too. I was like, it cracked.
Well, you need to look into each case specifically. Yes.
And what did he say? I asked him how it happened. He said, well, they plastered the walls on both sides. And that's it. And the next day it all cracked. And as for what happened to me, it stood through the whole winter. And I think I started plastering in April. Or in May. The end of April, May. Around April, May, I started plastering. May was warm, actually. It was basically fine. I plastered this wall, plastered this one, and on these sides, too. Everything was great. And then when my wife started painting, she started painting in one day. And right here, it cracked. It cracked just like that, imagine. Here's the crack. Bang. And I was like, damn, what caused it? But it made it through the winter. I thought, could there really have been some kind of load there? I had snow lying there all winter. Nothing happened. There was all kinds of frost heaving. Nothing happened. But it was exactly when the aerated concrete block was plastered on both sides. And probably 2 days later it was painted with water-based paint. That's when it appeared. That's it. It doesn't extend any farther. And here's what I noticed. On the walls, so to speak. and plastered on one side. Apparently there's somewhere for the moisture to escape. I might be wrong, but that's what I'm blaming it on. In my case and my neighbors, it's the same story.
Moisture is actually a tricky thing, but I'd bet that if there had been a reinforced concrete bond beam, there wouldn't have been any cracks. It's good that in Oleg's case, nothing critical happened, and it won't interfere with further use.
So, we've been living here for about 1.5 to 2 months. We moved here to live. You probably know it was probably around the middle of May actually. At first I only came on weekends, sometimes in the evenings after work, and little by little, little by little. First I hauled 20 cubic meters of sand from the road to here, then all of this, well, the formwork, the rebar, poured the concrete, and then after that. So probably this May I spent the whole month, specifically on all this interior work, which means that by June 1st it was already like this here. That was the main focus. So, well, I told my wife, let's do it this way, I'll come here, I'll spend the night here. I'll just drive you to work, that's all. Then I'll start building the main house here. I've said that's it. 2 construction seasons are already lost. For the third one I said my conscience just won't allow it anymore. She agreed, and now, you know, after living there in June, she doesn't want to go back to the city. Not at all. Everywhere there's LED lighting, everything is as economical as possible. Ah, the floors are heated here. I didn't install them in the steam room, so they're in the main room. Yes, there. You know what it comes down to? It turns out they all use about 1.5 kilowatts.
How much area did you end up with here?
6 by 5.2. This is the exterior. Here, well, minus the walls. I can't say exactly how much right now, right? How much is it? 27, right? And basically it all seems small, but for 2 people.
It's basically like a Soviet one-room apartment. I once rented a place that was 33 square meters. But everything there is organized so badly. Those 33 square meters, you could fit everything much more efficiently in just 27 of them.
Now, if you look at how much these studio apartments cost here, well, that's how it is.
Yes.
It's probably close to 5 million already. 4 or 5 million rubles. And you then still have to start renovating. But here, it's absolutely for everything. Just like that. There, I don't know, for all those plastic pipes. For microwaves, refrigerators, countertops. Everything, for everything that's here, even including the terrace. It came out to about 760,000, I think. Here's what's left. I need to buy 2 doors. Install glass partitions, and also put in the baseboards everywhere. You know, it's about 800,000 rubles for all of this, for everything. Well, okay, there's also plastering and facades. Fine, I'll buy this from the decorative plaster, maybe for 40,000, maybe 50, and I'll do all of it myself. Let's round it up to 850, or even 900,000 rubles. But these things aren't even comparable. Here you can actually live. You have hot and cold water, sewage, ventilation, fresh air, wonderful neighbors.
That's it. With exterior insulation, you could live here year-round.
Yes. Well, we'll see.
With insulation, it would likely total around 1 million. I just wanted to go the same way myself because I also love the sauna, and you have to build one anyway. And why not start? Because later you'll have to go to the construction site from your apartment. Well, okay. And for me, it's fine. I live in the village, so it's like, damn, 5 minutes to the construction site. How will you get to the construction site from St. Petersburg? You can't.
What both self-builders and everyone else rightly say is that it all depends on location. I also looked at plots 70-80 kilometers away, and then I thought, what will that be like? Well, we want to go there on weekends to relax, but instead of resting, we won't be working there like slaves, mowing the grass and doing everything else. I'm not even mentioning construction. If we truly want to live there, we should find a place as close to the city as possible for the kids, school, and activities.
Well, that's also a question, whether it's far or not. Like, it's about 20 minutes, right? 20 minutes, yeah, that's how long it takes to get to the city, yeah.
Right now my son is living in an apartment there. So after hockey he comes home, takes a shower, eats, then I come and pick him up. Or he can take the minibus here. It's a very convenient location. It really takes me just 7 minutes by car to get to a Silky station. My wife gets on the train for 78 rubles, she gets to work. That's it. From Parnas, she used to use car sharing. At least 500 rubles there, at least 500 back, that was every day. Now she says of course she's really enjoying it because she just sits down and reads a book for half an hour instead of sitting there getting mad at drivers who cut her off. There are actually a lot of advantages. You take the dog, walk 100 meters, there's a huge field, by the way, they even shoot movies there.
Well, I just drove by, it's beautiful, yeah.
So you let him out, he runs around. If you get tired of the fields, you come here, it's about 150 meters, and there's a forest. That's it, you walk in the forest. Stores are nearby, all the conveniences, everything is close by. Well, what can I say about the whole build overall? Well, I can't say I'm some hardcore bargain hunter, but I do like saving money and buying things on sale, but everything that's here is mostly from Avito. You know, like a microwave for 2,500 and a fridge for 3,500. The neighbors replaced their door and offered us the old one, saying, take it if you want. That's it, you take a sander, sand it down, sand it again, cover it with tinted varnish, that's all, that's it. Basically, yeah, you also save about 10,000 rubles. A plastic window fits perfectly, you just buy it on Avito. I think I spent 7,000 rubles. Guys sell doors on Avito, you know. When they install a new door, they need to get rid of the old one somewhere. I came to them for the old one and they said, don't you want a new one? So I ask, why does it cost 14 or 32? They say, because the factory that made them burned down and the store in St. Petersburg that sold these doors, well, that's it.
They're dumping them.
They're dumping the goods so they don't have to pay rent. That's why he says it costs that much. I say, guys, don't try to sell me a new one. And that's it. That's how everything is here. So seriously, for the decorative plaster, it only took one bag. That's it.
That's the beauty of something small, because I couldn't do it like this myself, since even though my house is small, I still have a lot of windows. And they don't argue. You need huge ones. But when you have a miniature building, there's a door here, a door there, a window here, a window there.
How do you like the sink? Something I think 1,500 or so, with all the drain fittings there on Avito. The faucet for 1,000 rubles. I made this myself. The shelf there, like a bar shelf. My father gave this to me. He supported me too. He liked doing wood carving. The countertop, by the way. How much is the countertop? Probably 5 or 6,000. 2,300 rubles. We have a factory in Rybatskom that makes all these countertops. You go to them, and for 150 rubles, they'll cut it however you need. That's it. I made this kind of edge in the color of the countertop. My wife wants it to be in this sort of rustic style, so she wants to hang curtains here. A coat rack too. You know how I put it all together? Some hooks were lying around, just lying around, bam bam, and somehow it turned out like this. I used this thing here. Well, actually, it was supposed to be a nightstand or something. I wanted to make some kind of table, but it just stood on the balcony. Then I saw it got warped. It dried out, and that was it. Well, then, it will have to be a hanger, toilet. People move into new buildings, buy apartments, and sell it for 2,000 rubles. That's how I got a new toilet for 2,000 rubles. And things like, you know, a boiler, for example, a pressure tank with water filters, or the same water heater. You wait and wait for the January holidays for all that. There are big discounts in every store. I really look forward to those holidays and already know what I want to buy, with money set aside. That's it. You get everything at crazy discounts. That's also wonderful.
Winter is still the off-season. In summer, everything gets pricier.
Also, you know, from a savings point of view, why isn't it 6x6? Because if we make a slope, then a 6-meter board doesn't fit anymore. It has to be longer. So we don't have to bother, don't have to extend it, and don't end up with a bunch of scraps. And that's why it's 5.2. So what else? Well, where's the savings, right? Like my neighbor tells me, he hires craftsmen. Like, guys, can you do this for me, for example? And they say, well, 60,000. Yeah, it's about the same. He says, no, I'll do it myself. Here, well, I don't know. The total cost, well, bricks, probably about 1,000 rubles. Everything else is basically nothing. I think I managed to fit it all in for about 3,000 here. I already had a faucet there. Then, what else did I save on? Of course, on block installation. Right now, I think it costs about 2,500 to 3,000 per square meter to lay a 200mm block. Here, you do all of this yourself. What else? I reinforced here, right? Why did you skip the ring beam and save money? About a year ago, they probably charged 1,500 to 2,000 per linear meter. Now, I think it's about 2.5.
Well, there you go. So how high did it end up here?
It's 230 here, yes. Again, I didn't make it high. Why? Because it's still a bathhouse. That's it. Again, it's electric heating, and why heat the ceiling? Let the heat stay here. There will be more of it in the room. And then... I refused. I quickly decided against the ring beam due to the minimal slope and the presence of a load-bearing wall for extra support. I just reinforced more frequently. So 6mm rebar, the first row, I think, basically. I reinforced every 2 rows, and by the time I got to the last row, I was actually using 12mm rebar in the corners. I just took a 3-meter piece, bent it at 90 degrees and put it in the corners. That was probably to make it all more rigid, so everything would be more monolithic. I also did all the electrical work myself. I made all the grooves, laid out the wires, then my friend came over and connected everything. He spent about an hour and a half hooking it all up, and everything worked, the lights came on. I also installed all the polypropylene pipes myself, including the sewage system, so that was a good way to save money too. Right now, I think a plumbing point costs 5,500 rubles, and here I have 1, 2, 3, I don't know, maybe even 4, and the 5th one is over there in the kitchen. Well, those are just regular ones, I think, Pine. There's rigid foam insulati on the top and bottom, but it didn't work on the sides.
Today I heard the phrase again that construction starts with the toilet.
Well, yeah.
What do you have for septic?
About the septic tank, let's go. I'll share a quick story. Again, this was because of my haste and probably my lack of knowledge. I just went and bought 2 tanks. Well, I had one and I bought the second one, yeah. I thought, well, I'll make this kind of septic tank, you know, with an overflow and everything else. They dug the pit perfectly. I installed them there, assembled everything, and filled them in with sand mixed with cement. I happily went for tea. I also had some trailers, but there was no way to connect them here. I don't think they were even hooked up. So that's it. I had some tea, grabbed a snack, and came out maybe an hour later, and everything was sticking out. It all got pushed out right away. So how did I do it this time? I bought a regular septic tank. I don't even remember the brand. It's a horizontal type, double chambered. A pipe was installed in the foundation and exits here, all insulated for about 1 to 1.5 cubic meters. I can't recall exactly if it was 1 or 1.5 cubic meters. And basically there are no problems at all. Of course, for the house, I will already be installing that kind of biological treatment system.
Here is a well for the water supply. Yes, there's a pumping station inside the well.
There's a regular well pump there. The pumping station is called Krot. So this set probably costs about half as much as buying a water filter, a pressure tank, and the pump separately. All of this is sold as one set. One manufacturer has already assembled everything and sealed it. You just take it out, anchor it to the floor, and connect all the pipes. It's better to get a 50-liter one, it will activate less often.
I haven't seen insulated rings yet.
Yes, I'll cover it with bricks later. There will be a wooden base here. So basically there's a regular 25mm HDPE or LDPE pipe, a well pump hanging on a chain, and that's it, plus the wire that comes in from the pressure tank. So, from the pump to the pressure tank and to the pump itself. Yeah, you know, probably the most important thing in construction is the tools. I mean, without it, you have to ask someone, you have to come up with something, invent things yourself.
Yeah, invent things.
And you start wasting time on that, yeah, making mistakes. I have a lot of tools, all kinds of different ones. My bed is covered with tools, and that's not even all of them. There's nowhere to store them yet because the house is still being built, so everything's here. Yeah, 2 reciprocating saws, 2 rotary hammers, 2 angle grinders, 2 drill drivers, a welding machine, and so on and so on. Glass cutters, basically everything you need, everything that should be on a construction site. 3 different nozzles. You adjust the pressure for all of this. Well, about at this distance. Again, it depends on how you diluted the plaster, yeah, what its density is. So, about at this distance? Well, for this whole room I won't brag, but it probably took me about 3 hours for everything. That's including mixing. I think I got it on Ozon for about 1,400 rubles, maybe even 1,200. Very inexpensive, you could say.
There are some guys I know here too.
Dicko, yeah, I like it.
With a reciprocating saw and this blade, cutting aerated concrete blocks is easy. Just do it like this.
I did all the blocks myself. This speeds things up a lot, saves a lot of time.
I noticed the speed issue too. It happens. Here's a question. It's like, damn, 1,500 rubles and you're standing there hesitating like, is it worth it? But you'll make that 1,500 back later just by working faster.
Yeah, it's simple. About the blocks, yeah, here at the house I was laying them myself. I made those blocks myself. I had to make 25 of them. So I realized that if I bought them, well, I would pay 25,000 rubles.
That's 800 rubles each. I'm out of touch.
400 for the LSR one.
I don't remember. I used to pay 200 for them. Damn, that's 4 times more.
Look, yeah, these blocks here, I bought them in February. They weren't available anywhere yet. Let me tell you, and let LSR think about it, this is a direct criticism of them, so to speak. You go to their official website and there, let's say, the price is 7,500 rubles for a cubic meter of aerated concrete, right? But the delivery cost just doesn't compare to Vimos. If you go to Vimos, you'll buy the same aerated block at the same price and it'll be from LSR, but the delivery will cost you almost 3 times less. Their logistics and delivery are just excellent. When I was building this little house, I realized that I was overpaying 15,000 rubles for delivery. And what did I buy for those 15,000 rubles? I bought some cement sand mix for myself to lay the first row. I bought some roofing felt for waterproofing. I bought rebar for myself, and I think even some boards for this. Of course, for the foam work. But even cooler, I got a 400 block from Belarus. There, the difference is around 2,000 rubles per cubic meter.
So what does that mean?
It came out to 6,350, I think. Something like that.
16. That's the total.
With delivery per cubic meter. Including delivery, with delivery. And here now I think it's only 7,900.
7,900 without delivery now?
Without delivery, yes. And delivery, well, that's probably at least another 500 or 600.
One truck costs 80,000 a truck can fit. Well, I forgot how much.
40 cubic meters. So 80,000 rubles I calculated. You save when buying from Belarus. The quality is just as good. It's the same technology in terms of geometry. Well,
I'm interested in the quality. I have something to compare it with.
Oleg began building the main house using 400 mm thick D400 aerated concrete blocks for the walls. These walls don't require extra insulation. I've been in a finished house with these walls, but I was especially interested to see the process and hold an aerated concrete block myself. And even though a 400 mm D400 wall is objectively better, I'm very glad that I chose 300 mm D300 for my house. Otherwise, I would have just ruined my back. Even a heavy weightlifting belt, which I used to carry the blocks, probably wouldn't have saved me since I was carrying 20 kilograms before, and these already weigh 40 each. But what pleasantly surprised me was the quality of the blocks from this factory. I already checked it out a few years ago right in Belarus itself, and back then it had poor dimensional accuracy. And now it's almost better than the LSR one, which, by the way, I wouldn't buy again, because the second time blocks arrived at my construction site that hadn't been kept in the autoclave long enough. Blocks like these have this kind of core which tends to fall apart at the most inconvenient moment. It's good that I only had to buy one extra pallet and use it on the gables, not on the main load-bearing walls. As for building the house in general, once again I realized that I wouldn't try to save money on load-bearing elements and the building envelope or on engineering systems. Everything else can be fixed or replaced. My parents also tried living in a bathhouse during construction. All 4 of us stayed there while my father built the house, so it's a practical solution. My place of residence and way of earning allowed me to travel to the construction site from a rented apartment, but in other circumstances, maybe a tiny house would have tipped the scales. I hope I was helpful to you. A huge thank you to Oleg for his hospitality, and let's all wish him success with the construction of his main house. I'm wrapping up as well and going to finish mine. And due to recent events, new videos will also be available on domestic platforms. I'm working on filling them with content so you can watch wherever it's convenient for you. All the links are in the description of each video on the channel. Plus, you can get the plans for my house and support the channel's development on Boosty. The link will also be in the description or pinned in the top comment. So subscribe so you don't miss out, and see you in the next video.